I think you had some marriage advice for me. Is that right? Or
how the hell did we get here?
Well, you know what? Listen, I did it. People, headlines are headlines. We can get into that another time, but I was
hoping you were.
Take it back. Take it back.
If I'm married and my wife is going to join trolling her ex, go back to his ass. Because clearly you don't belong with me. What you worried about him for and you with me?
I gotta get that link back.
But you're still single.
Serena Williams walked across that Super Bowl halftime stage in a simple, elegant outfit. She wasn't there to perform. She wasn't there to sing. She was just there to dance. And in that one moment, she managed to spark one of the biggest relationship debates in sports media that we're still talking about today. But what made people lose their minds wasn't the dance. It was what happened the second this clip hit social media. Stephen A. Smith went on national television and said something that split the internet in half. Some people applauded him. Other people called him out as insecure. And then Serena's husband, Alexis Ohanian, walked into the ESPN studio and essentially told Stephen A. that he had no idea what he was talking about. Smooth, calculated, a perfect check in front of millions of people. The crazy part? He wasn't even angry, and that's what made it sting even more. So here's the thing. This wasn't just some random celebrity drama that disappeared in a week. This moment exposed something way bigger about relationships, respect, ego, and what it actually means to stand by your partner. And the more you dig into what went down, the messier it gets. If you're here for the first time, hit that subscribe button because we break down the wildest moments in sports and entertainment every single week. Seriously, the conversations we have in this channel hit different. And if you've been rolling with us, appreciate the love. Let's get into this. The moment that started it all. Picture this, Super Bowl halftime show. Kendrick Lamar is on top of the world. His album is breaking records. His songs are everywhere. He's got the biggest stage in sports, ready to showcase his talent to over 100 million people watching live. The energy is insane. And right there in the middle of his performance, Serena Williams walks out. Not to perform, not to sing, just to dance. And in Compton, where they're both from, that gesture means something. But here's where people started paying attention to something else. Serena's dancing was energetic. It was celebratory. It was the kind of dancing that makes you want to jump off your couch. But some people online started connecting dots that maybe weren't supposed to be connected. They started saying that her appearance and the way she was dancing was kind of a message to someone specific. Drake, her ex. Now, before we go any further, you gotta understand the history here. Serena and Drake had a thing. It wasn't some secret. People knew about it. And right around the time Kendrick was beefing with Drake, releasing songs that were basically calling Drake out, Serena's presence at that halftime show started looking less like a coincidence and more like a statement. That's when the commentators started talking. That's when the hot takes started flying. And that's when Stephen A. Smith decided to weigh in with something that would echo all the way to Alexis Ohanian sitting on a couch months later. Stephen A. Smith says what everyone's thinking. Stephen A. Smith is known for saying things that other people are just thinking. He doesn't hold back. He puts it out there. So when he saw that clip of Serena at the Super Bowl, he did what he always does. He shared his immediate reaction without filtering it. On ESPN First Take, he basically said this: if he was married to Serena and his wife went out on a massive public stage to dance around, seemingly sending messages to an ex, he wouldn't be okay with it. His exact words were something like, if that's where your head's at, if you're still caught up on your ex, then go be with him. Don't be with me. Now, a lot of people heard that and nodded their heads. They got it. They understood where he was coming from. The logic seemed sound to a lot of people watching. If you're married, you don't go performing in ways that could be interpreted as throwing shade at your husband's rival or your own ex. That's disrespectful. That's not what marriage is supposed to be about. But here's where it gets interesting. Not everyone agreed. Some people said Stephen A. was being sexist. They said he was imposing some outdated, patriarchal standard on Serena, where she couldn't just enjoy herself and support a friend without it being about a man. They said Serena is her own person. She can dance wherever she wants. She's not owned by her husband. She doesn't need permission. The debate got heated fast. It split families. It split friend groups. People were arguing in comment sections for days about whether Stephen A. was right or whether he was completely out of line. And nobody really expected what happened next. That's when Alexis Ohanian decided to show up. The husband speaks, and nobody saw it coming. Months after all this drama, Alexis Ohanian, Serena's husband, ended up on ESPN First Take. Now, some people say he was there for a specific reason. Others say it was just a happy coincidence that he was on the show when the conversation came up. But what happened when they started talking about that Super Bowl moment is something that people are still breaking down in clips today. Alexis didn't come in hot. He didn't come in aggressive. He came in smooth. He basically asked Stephen A. a simple question: have you ever been married before? Stephen A. said no. He admitted that he's never actually been married. And then Alexis delivered the perfect response. He said something along the lines of, well, I give advice to people about building billion-dollar companies because I've built billion-dollar companies. So I stay in my lane. And with that one statement, he basically called out Stephen A. for giving marriage advice when he's never actually been married himself. It was brilliant. It was subtle. It wasn't mean-spirited or aggressive, but it landed hard. The internet absolutely went crazy. People were clipping it. People were sharing it everywhere. Everyone was saying that Alexis had just checked Stephen A. Smith on live television in the most dignified way possible. But here's the thing that most people missed when they were celebrating that moment. The argument nobody wants to admit. When you really break down what happened, this situation is way more complicated than a simple Alexis dunked on Stephen A. moment. Because the truth is, Stephen A. wasn't completely off base with what he was saying, and Alexis wasn't completely right either. Think about it from this angle. In a marriage, respect has to go both ways. That's fundamental. That's not debatable. Whether you're married to someone worth millions or someone working a regular job, respect is the foundation. When one partner does something in public that could be interpreted as throwing shade at the other partner or their interests, that's something that needs to be discussed. That's not controlling. That's not insecurity. That's just being realistic about what a partnership means. But on the flip side, Alexis had a point too. Stephen A. was speaking from a place of zero experience. He was theorizing about marriage without ever having actually been married. That's different from someone who's actually been through the ups and downs of a long-term relationship with all the compromises and conversations that come with it. So who's actually right here? Well, that's where it gets messy. Because both of them are right in their own ways, and both of them are also missing something important. What this really exposed about modern relationships. This whole situation pulled back the curtain on something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. The difference between independence and respect in a partnership. See, there's this modern idea that's become really popular, where if you're in a relationship, you still have to maintain complete independence. You can do whatever you want. You don't need to check with your partner. You don't need to worry about their feelings. To do anything else is to be controlled or oppressed. And look, there's some truth to that. You should maintain your independence in a relationship. You should have your own identity. You shouldn't lose yourself just because you got married. But here's what people miss. There's a difference between independence and disrespect. If you're married and you do something public that could embarrass your partner or throw them in a negative light, that's not independence. That's disrespect. Independence would be going out and living your life and supporting your friends. But independence would also include having conversations with your partner about boundaries and what feels okay for both people. That's what marriage actually is. It's a constant conversation. It's compromise. It's respecting the other person's feelings while also honoring your own needs. It's not just, I can do whatever I want because I'm an independent woman. And it's also not, my wife needs to ask me permission for everything because I'm the man. It's somewhere in the middle. It's a balance. And the reason this Serena moment blew up so big is because it exposed that a lot of people have completely lost that balance. They don't even know what balance looks like anymore. The ego factor, the thing nobody wants to admit. Here's something that gets swept under the rug in these conversations. Men have egos. Women have egos. That's just human nature. And in relationships, egos can either be a strength or a weakness, depending on how they're managed. When Serena showed up at that Super Bowl halftime performance and danced in a way that could be interpreted as connected to Drake, it didn't matter if it was intentional or not. What mattered is how it landed. And for a lot of men, and honestly, for a lot of people in general, that's going to sting a little bit. Your partner appearing to celebrate something connected to your rival or their ex. That hits different. Now, some people will say that's insecurity. They'll say a secure man wouldn't care. A secure man would let his wife do whatever she wants without any reaction. But that's not realistic. That's not how humans work. A man can be secure in his relationship and still have feelings about something like that. A man can be confident and still have an ego that gets bruised. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. The difference is what you do with those feelings. Do you have a conversation about it? Do you work through it? Do you understand your partner's perspective and try to find common ground? Or do you just blow up or check out? That's the real test. And when you look at what happened between Serena and Alexis, it seems like they handled it behind closed doors. They didn't blow this up in public. They didn't have a whole argument on social media. Alexis made his point to Stephen A., and then they moved on. That's maturity. That's how you actually handle relationship stuff. But the broader point here is something that society keeps getting wrong. We keep acting like if you have any emotional reaction to something your partner does, that means you're insecure or controlling. And that's just not true. Having feelings doesn't make you toxic. Acting on those feelings with respect and communication, that's what matters. Why Serena's moment meant more than people realized. Step back for a second and look at the bigger picture of what was actually happening at that Super Bowl halftime show. Kendrick Lamar was performing at one of the biggest moments of his career. He was on top of the world. His music was breaking records. His impact was undeniable. And Serena showed up to support him. That's what the moment was actually about. It wasn't about Drake. It wasn't about sending messages to exes. It was about Serena supporting a friend and fellow Compton native at one of the biggest moments of his career. But because of the context, because of the Drake beef, because of the history, because of how social media interprets everything through the lens of drama, that simple act of support got twisted into something it wasn't supposed to be. That's what's actually wild about this whole situation. The original moment was pure. Serena was just celebrating her friend. But the internet can't see things that simply anymore. Everything gets filtered through drama, beefs, and old relationships. And here's the thing that really matters. That context gets lost when people are just looking for content or hot takes. Stephen A. saw the clip without the full context. He saw what looked like a moment aimed at Drake. He didn't see a woman supporting her friend. He saw something through the lens of relationship dynamics that he was theorizing about without actual experience. That's not entirely his fault. That's just how media works. But it's also why Alexis's response was so important. It wasn't just about defending his wife. It was about saying, hold on, you're speaking from theory, not from reality. And that's a powerful distinction. The legacy of this moment. So what does this whole thing actually mean when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture? It means we're at a weird place culturally where we're still trying to figure out what modern relationships actually look like. We've rejected the old model where women were just supposed to follow their husband's rules without question. That's good. That needed to change. But we haven't quite figured out what replaces it. We're somewhere in the middle, and it's messy. People are confused about what respect means. People are confused about independence. People are confused about how to actually be in a partnership with another human being while also maintaining your own identity. The Serena and Alexis situation exposed all of that. It showed us that we need to have better conversations about what healthy relationships actually look like. It's not about one person having all the power. It's not about one person having complete freedom with zero consideration for their partner. It's about balance. It's about communication. It's about respect. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. Not who won the argument between Stephen A. and Alexis, but what their argument actually revealed about the conversations we need to be having as a society. The final word. At the end of the day, what happened between Serena and Alexis behind closed doors is their business. They've been married for years. They've figured out how to make it work. And Alexis handled the whole Stephen A. situation with class and intelligence. But what we can take from this is something bigger. Relationships require respect. They require communication. They require understanding that your actions affect another person, even if you're just trying to live your life and have your own experiences. Stephen A. was right that respect matters in a marriage. Alexis was right that you should speak from experience, not theory. And Serena was right to just be there supporting her friend and doing her thing. The real win? When all three of those things can coexist. When you can be independent and still respectful. When you can have your own experiences and still honor your partnership. When you can speak from knowledge instead of assumption. That's what a healthy relationship actually looks like. That's what real maturity looks like. And honestly, that's a lesson that goes way beyond just Serena and Alexis. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, that means you actually care about getting the deeper perspective on these moments instead of just accepting the surface level drama. That's exactly what we do here every single week. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss when we drop new videos, and drop a comment down below. Where do you actually stand on this whole situation? Let's have a real conversation about it. Thanks for watching.